Welcome to episode 2 of the Just Some Good Old Boys podcast. I'm Brock.
And I'm Billy Saws-a-Lot.
And today we're going to cover a lot of subjects that I found to be really interesting. We're going to talk about Billy's life growing up on a farm, and we're going to go into regenerative farming, the current state of Indian affairs in Oklahoma, Marvel movies, and we're going to answer a bunch of your questions from the previous episode. So to start off, Billy, what was it like growing up on a farm in Oklahoma?
Grew up in a small town about 15 miles south of here called Quapaw. I still live there. I live about a mile and a half from where I grew up. Lived on a farm. We raised, when I was young, we raised hogs. When I was older, we raised cattle and farmed row crops. And I give you a hard time about the John Deere stuff. We didn't have John Deere equipment. We ran Allis-Chalmers. My grandpa had Allis-Chalmers. My dad had Allis-Chalmers, and we actually owned one of Dad's tractors. It sold at auction whenever we stopped farming, and we bought it back. My brother bought it back. We actually took a video of it whenever you come down and did some work. We'll have to do that again.
So we recorded a video about this old tractor, the history of the tractor. It still runs. We drove it around, and the audio was so bad that I didn't publish it. But that is a video I want to make. I really love the old tractors. I've done some with the old Ford tractors, and I've got the Model A from Deere. And so definitely we'll get back to that tractor. But they still make tractors now, don't they?
No. They sold to a German company that started putting air-cooled engines in them. And then American farmers weren't interested in having air-cooled engines on the farm.
There seems to me a lot of nostalgia towards those older Allis-Chalmers tractors.
Yeah, me and my brother was actually going to go to a show this summer. They were built in West Allis, Wisconsin, yeah. And there's a big show up there, and they all the guys bring out their old Allis-Chalmers tractors, and just like any other, like a hot rod show,
restored and cleaned up and stuff.
Yeah, probably better than new. Yeah. But we ran Allis-Chalmers Gleaner combines, and it was fun growing up on the farm because I learned how to work on things, and I learned, we didn't have a lot of money, so you had to learn how to make things work with what you had, and that's kind of what we've had to do on a couple projects here. We didn't have the money to buy a crane, so we had to figure out how to do it on our own. And
so when you say you grew up on a farm, I'm taking that, knowing you, that it's probably not that many acres, or how big of a property did you guys have, and how much?
Well, we owned about 300 at the home place in two different pieces, and then we rented farm ground. It had more. Most of the places had pasture and row crop ground and some hay meadows and stuff. So, but yeah, we farmed about 600-700 acres of row crops, and then had 70-80 head of cows somewhere in that neighborhood.
And was it something that's always changing the types of crops you did, or was it most of the time growing up you did the same thing?
Most of the time we grew the same things. The rotation back then was mainly wheat and soybeans. There wasn't any corn grown around here at that period of time. Nobody grew corn. But you throw in milo every once in a while, or sorghum, depending on where you're from, and then oats. We actually, Roy Clark, the country singer, had a ranch over at Welch, Oklahoma, and he had horses, and we grew oats for Roy Clark's ranch. So it wasn't every year. We didn't raise oats every year, but yeah, we had the 240 acres there at the house, and grew up hunting and fishing. Had 2 ponds, and you get home from school and grab a gun, grab a fishing pole.
Sounds fun. I'm sure there are times when it wasn't, though. But at what age was it that you were expected to really help or what age were you allowed to drive a tractor or made to drive a tractor? How'd that all play out?
It was never made. I loved it. As young as I can remember, I was riding on the tractor with mom or dad, and this is back in the days whenever there wasn't a buddy seat, and there wasn't a air conditioner. Well, we did have an air conditioner, it didn't work. So
there was probably not a lot of safety devices of any kind.
No, and we already been over the lack of shielding on PTO devices. We'd had already discussed that, but we had towards the end, maybe the last 7-8 years. I was probably 12 years old when we bought the nicest tractor we ever owned was a Alice Chalmers 7045. Dad had from the time I was young, I don't remember us buying them, but he had a 200, which is the one that my brother has, and a 190. 190 was an open cab, and I rode on the fender of it. I mean, bush hogging, whatever, didn't matter. I was riding on it. And we actually know who owns that one, and we're going to try to buy that one whenever the time comes. But I bought a tractor when I was 10 years old. It was an Alice Chalmers 170. I bought it with my money. One of the things, my grandpa had left me some land, left me 18 acres. And then when I was young, mom and dad would buy me a cow every year, give me one out of the herd. So I had 4 or 5 cows and 18 acres, and I might make $3,500 or $4,000 a year. Of course, that was a lot of money 30 years ago, but so I bought that Alice Chalmers 170 for $3,500, and it had a Perkins diesel engine in it, and me and Dad restored it. And my dad was a perfect teacher for someone like me. I can learn by watching, and I watch. So I've been watching him work on stuff my whole life, handing him tools, getting yelled at for all the things that we get yelled at for whenever we're kids, helping our dad mechanic on things. But my dad wasn't a yeller, really. I mean, it wasn't, not like I am. But he just tell me what to do. Well, you need to take this off. And he didn't go, all right, this is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3. You need to get the hood off of it. Well, I had to figure out how to get the hood off of it. Need to put a new muffler on it. Figure out how to get the muffler off. So, yeah, we worked on that thing for years. We bought a 4-bottom plow, and probably 6 or 7 days after we bought it, I was out in the field plowing.
So one question I had as you're telling that story is I don't know anything about model numbers on an old tractor like that. Like, how big of a tractor is that? Do you know the horsepower? What was it capable of? How old? What year was it? Was it old when you got it?
Yeah, it was a 69 model. Mine was a 69, I believe. The 190 and 200 were early 70s, like 72 to 73. The 7045 was a 78 model. It was 145 horsepower. The 190 and the 200, it's a weird thing, but they're both 100 horsepower. And my 170 was 70 horsepower.
So that was a serious farm tractor. It wasn't just because you were younger. I was thinking they guided you towards like a small tractor, but
no,
it was a serious machine.
No, it had a buggy top, little sunshade buggy top, and a AM radio that sat on the fender, and I would listen to whatever station I could pick up. And
I guess I'm assuming it was probably a pretty beat up machine when you got it, right? Or
not really. I mean, a lot of times on those older tractors, the hood's been up, and you know the grill on the front, it may have one, it may not. It had one, but we straightened it up and sanded it up and repainted it. Mechanically, it was fine. I don't ever remember doing anything really serious to it mechanically. We probably should have worked on the brakes, but.
And then, so you get this tractor, and starting at 10, and then probably more by the year, you're being taught how to manage the economics of your own part of this farm.
Well, no, probably not. I mean, it was kind of mom and dad helping us out with we were able to make our own money, so they didn't have to, I need $20 to go buy this, or I need school clothes, or what it was. I had my own money. So, but we worked for it. It wasn't like they just gave it to us. I mean, you asked how young I was when I started working on the farm. Whenever I was big enough to go outside and walk around. I mean, picking up sticks, picking up, cleaning fence rows, just being there and handing tools. It was the family went out and did this. So, I don't know that I ever got paid a wage ever for, well, you went and worked for me all day, so here you go. It was just what we did.
Right. And then after that, I was going to ask you about your sports, because I know that you were a pretty good athlete, and at some point you probably focused a lot on that too.
It was whenever I had time. When we lived out whenever I was little, my grandpa lived just 100 yards from us, just up the road. And I was always out in the yard with my brother or by myself with the ball, throwing it up in the air and hitting it, and playing catch with yourself, how you do whenever you're little. And he bought me a pitchback, and I would stand in front of it and throw the ball at it. And as many times as all evening. We didn't have a basketball goal. I had some friends that lived around close, but we didn't play all the time. It was mainly me and by myself out in the yard. My brother's 7 years older than me, so he was off doing other things whenever I was 9, 10 years old, or 8 or 9 years old. My grandpa brought me that pitchback, and he would drive in his old pickup and come and sit in the driveway and watch me play. And played t-ball from the time I played baseball from the time I was 5 years old till I was 21. And lost my train of thought.
For reference, he told you he lives in Quapaw. That is a town of how many people?
There's probably about 600 in the town.
Yeah. And
about 130, 140 kids in the high school when I graduated. In the high school.
The whole school?
The whole high school. Four grades, 130, 140 kids.
That's about the same size school I went to. I think we had 40, 50 kids per grade. But you got pretty into baseball. Was that your only sport? Or
no, I played them all up until high school. I quit playing football in high school, and I regret it pretty badly.
Because you can't ever go back.
No,
that's what
can't ever go back. So I played every summer. I tell this story to a lot of the kids because I coached the high school baseball team. I'm been the pitching coach, and now I'm a full-fledged assistant, unpaid, but full-fledged assistant. When they've had a bad day, they're tired. I was talking about bring it back to tractors and being on the farm. We'd get up early in the morning, go gas up the tractor or diesel up the tractor, and go to the field. And if I had a baseball game here in Baxter when I was older, in the evening, 15, 16, 17, or 12, 13, 14, 15, I played here in Baxter in the summertime. And would ride the tractor all day long. Mom would get off work, pick me up, bring me to the baseball game, and tractor had a cab and no air conditioning. So I'd strip down to my shorts and take the water hose and rinse all the mud off of me, or rinse all the dust off of me to turn into mud, put my uniform on and go play. And Mom never told me that it was okay for me to not play well tonight because I'd been out working all day. That was a break. This was fun. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't a reason to make an excuse for why I didn't play, but I was a left-handed pitcher. I could throw it pretty hard and had a pretty good curveball. After high school, I went to Seminole Junior College and played there for 2 years. I was lucky enough to play for the winningest coach in, I believe it's all of college baseball history. He's the winningest coach ever, Lloyd Simmons.
Wow.
He wears the number 0, and that was the number of games that he expected us to lose. And we never came through for him, but we made it to the World Series my freshman year. If those of you that are baseball fans, Eric Gagne was on that team. He pitched for the Dodgers, was closer for the Dodgers for several years and won a Cy Young Award. And I got more stories about him, but you knew that he had it.
Special.
So, yeah. They're just different. I say that. Another guy on the team, if you're in the Minnesota area, you will know this name, Lou Ford. He was just a utility player in the major leagues, but was good enough to be there. Wasn't probably not somebody you ever heard of and wasn't anybody's favorite player, but Lou is a great guy, quiet, opposite of Gagne. So, but yeah, it was a fun experience.
So my question is, so I loved sports, I still love sports, and I love to play and I love to watch, and I had a belief, because I'm this crazy optimist, I always believed I was going to play professional sports.
I did too.
And I wasn't even good as a kid. And I didn't let go of that until I was too old for it to make sense.
Yeah.
And I wonder, as someone who was good enough to play on a college team, how was it after the last pitch? When did you realize that you weren't going to make it professional? And do you think that it was ever within your ability to go that far?
Yes, it was within the ability. So today kids have pitch counts, and parents are probably paying too close of attention to it, to be honest. But back then they didn't. I threw almost every game. I say that's probably overstating it, but I threw a lot. And there was no pitch count, and I wanted to win, and I wanted the ball in my hand. And if I could raise my arm above right here, I pitched with my arm shaking like this. I would go out there and pitch. Well, you can only do that for so many years. And the summer of 1997, got a call from the assistant coach. I was a UCO at the time. We had just gotten beat in the national championship game in Montgomery, Alabama. It's about 3 weeks later, coach calls and says, "Hey, our pitcher can't, this summer league game, pitcher can't be there tonight. Can you come?" And I'm like, man, I haven't picked up the ball since the season's over with. And he said, "We're playing at OU." And I said, "I'll be there." So I go. And I'm an OU fan. I wanted to go to OU. Division I, you get 11.7 scholarships, each still that way today. 11.7 scholarships to field an entire team, and you can't work at Division I. You cannot have a job. So I had a child, so I had to work. So I went to UCO. OU wasn't beating down the door to recruit me either, just to be clear. But anyway, that's where I wanted to go. I've been an OU fan my whole life, and I'm going to get a chance to play on that field. So I went, and I'm pitching as good as I've ever pitched. I proved that I was good enough to pitch against those guys. And Willie Hill, left-handed hitter, played center field, played in the big leagues, is up to bat. And I throw a pitch, and he bunts it, and I go get it and throw it, and got him out, and it popped loose. I was crying before I got to the first base line, and knew that I was done. It was over with. So went back to the apartment, and packed up, and probably 2 days later was living back up here. So wasn't an option to get shoulder surgery. I had to work. So anyway, yeah, I knew it was over, but I didn't want it to be.
And that was extremely painful.
Yes,
for you.
It still is.
Emotionally.
It still is.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to do. Now, looking back, I like to be home. A baseball player, professional baseball player, is gone 9 months out of the year. I probably would have washed out either by not being good enough or by not wanting to be home and being homesick, and then coming home. So then I decided I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to be a college coach. Similar situation. I realized that you're gone 10 months out of the year, because if you're not recruiting, you're coaching. So, and I had kids, and I decided that, well, back up a little bit. 2 years after I got done playing, Gary Ward, that was coach at Oklahoma State, he was the director of baseball operations at NEO, and he coached at Oklahoma State for years, and his son was the head baseball coach. So I came and stood in the gym at NEO, because knew where the coach's office was, and waited for the man to walk in, and walked up to him and said, I would like to be a graduate assistant or do something so I can learn baseball from you. And he said, absolutely, come on. And took me over to the registrar's office and said he's going to be a grad assistant for us. And I lived in that man's hip pocket for a year and a half and learned every single thing I could possibly learn about hitting from him, because I'd learned pitching, or I thought I had, but learned hitting from him. And saw how those guys, it wasn't, the road to being a paid coach at the college level is a long road.
And I don't know that road a lot, but I've read a lot about what it means to be a minor league baseball player. And all things considered, there's a possibility that as a professional player you can become wealthy from it and live your dream as an adult. But there is a lot of struggle in between where you stopped and where you wanted to go.
Oh yeah, those guys don't make nothing.
You were ready for it, but if you don't know, like 6 months of the year, your entire life, you are a baseball player, but you make like $8,000 for that.
Yeah,
it's like nothing.
It may be more
10,
than that now,
12,
but it ain't a lot.
So I looked at it a couple years ago, and this isn't like expert opinion or anything, but it was less than minimum wage. You would make more at absolute minimum wage as a fast food worker than you would as a minor league baseball player, which is like a fault of the system that we don't have to really get into. Yeah. Same as the college thing, why they wouldn't allow you to work, and they've made changes now, and that's not what this show's about, but it is not an easy journey to be talented and make it to becoming a professional.
And baseball's really, there's thousands of guys there may not be quite that, but there probably is thousands of guys that aren't major leaguers, aren't in the major leagues. The way that a lot of them make it is they got drafted high, they got a pretty decent signing bonus, so they can live off of that for a while. But a guy on my Little League team is from pitcher. His name is Matt Carnes. He played at Arkansas, and he made it to AAA. And I think he was there for 8 years. But the key is, the trick is to get on the 40-man roster. If you can get on the 40-man roster, then there's only 25 players on the major league team, but they have 40 people on the roster, and that's the guys that they can bring up at any time. And those guys all get a major league salary, so major league minimum. And then you stay on that for. They changed it, but it used to be like if you was on the 40-man for 6 years and you got a pension the rest of your life, and then you're set. I mean, it's like $50,000 a year for the rest of your life. So, and I know that's not a lot of money, but
it matters. Sure as heck matters.
Yeah, you can. Those old timers though, those guys, it's really sad how they've done them. It's bad as they do the minor leaguers. The old guys that built the game, they don't get anything from baseball. I mean, they have to go out and sign autographs and everything else to try to make a living. So, but anyway, that's maybe a story for a different day.
Yeah.
Maybe
so
we'll have Pete
I
Rose
find
on
the
next
baseball incredibly interesting. It's related to what I do for a living. My son still plays, but I guess if we want to move on from the story, you started off as a farming family and you want to get back there. Mm-hmm. So I guess let's tell the story after you came back from hurting your shoulder.
I struggled for a lot of years because, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Had lots of, dead-end jobs, just working at a plant, working in a casino, and then go back to a plant, and then, what I wanted to do, I couldn't make any money at. You have to have a degree. And I wanted to coach. Then I wanted to coach high school baseball. After I got done at NEO, kind of left a hole in the story there. I wanted to be a high school coach, and so I got to go get my teaching degree. I wasn't very far away from my teaching degree. I'm actually only two science classes in student teaching away from getting that. But I decided I didn't want to be a teacher, and probably didn't have the temperament at the time to be a teacher. But anyway, bounced around job to job, started a lawn care business, did that. I loved the lawn care business. I loved seeing the work that I did and driving by these places that I had, and everybody driving by and saying, "Oh, that looks so good out there." Like, yeah, it looks good, and loved that part of it. The economy crashed 2008. I was stupid and had all my eggs in 2 baskets, and we lost both of those accounts, and I was done. There wasn't any recovering. I had too much debt.
And let's explain. I think I know what you mean, but just to be clear, you most of your mowing income came from two
accounts.
Commercial accounts, and
Yeah.
you lost those.
Yeah, they one of them was a grant-funded company, and they couldn't afford to pay it. And I told them one of my favorite sayings: "I don't have to come out here and work all week to go broke. I can do that sitting at the house."
You feel like going into it a little bit about your thoughts on running a lawn mowing business?
Yeah, we can do that.
Because that's where I tried to start.
Yeah.
And then decided that it fit my interest better to run larger equipment. But I found a lawn mowing business to be very difficult. Or one, if you're mowing individual people's yards, you have so much time going from one to another and retrailering everything that you burn a lot of time that you can't bill the last customer for. So I found it difficult to make any money per hour mowing individual yards.
I tried to make $60 an hour, $60 a man hour, while at the job. And the hardest thing about the lawn care business is bidding it. So what I would do is I would take the job that I thought would take the longest: mowing, weed eating, edging, blowing off, whichever one I thought was going to take the longest. And I would use that as a basis for how long it's going to take. And what I would do is I'd just walk up to the house and think, well, it looks like it's going to take quite a while to weed eat this one. And I would just walk the path that I would have to weed eat and work my way around, work my way back around the front of the house. Took 9 minutes. Okay, well, it's going to take 27 minutes to mow this yard for 3 guys. So that works out to whatever it works out to.
And how'd you get from 9 to 27? It takes 3 times as long to weed eat?
Well, you're gonna have to weed eat it, edge it, mow it, blow it off. So you got 4 things you got to do. Weed eating is going to take the longest. So these other things are not going to take 9 minutes. They're going to take 9 minutes or less. Blowing off at a place is usually just a minute or 2. I mean, at a residential house, I mean, you walk around the back, blow off the back porch.
You mean 27 minutes in like man hours?
Yes.
Okay.
So you got a $30 yard.
So when you're done with your 9 minutes, the other people should be done.
Yes.
And you're leaving.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the whole key is whenever to make money in mowing a lawn is that however many people you got there, all of them have to be working every single second that you're there, or else it won't, or else you're losing money the way I look at it. Because I mean, if one of the guys is done 5 minutes before everybody else, there's something he could be doing that may not be helping us get this lawn done faster, but it may be helping to get one of the lawns that we're going to do later in the day done faster, like making sure that the weed eaters are full of gas, that that there's extra.
So by 27 minutes, you mean basically half of a man hour?
Yeah, you're charging $1 a minute per man. So if I'm guesstimating that it is going to take 27 minutes for 3 guys to mow, it's going to take 27 minutes for one guy to do this by himself. So if one guy can do it in 27, then 3 guys we're going to charge you for 3 guys doing it in 27 minutes. So that's your $30 yard.
Your goal is if you have 3 people that it takes you 9 minutes. Are you really there 15 to unload everything? Or you
Better
guys?
not be.
You guys are just see that's
the guy, whenever, as soon as you stop, the guy that's riding shotgun needs to be getting his ass out and getting the gate down, so that the guy driving the truck, which was usually, well, I was usually driving the truck, but I was a weed eater guy. So the other guy can be getting on the mower and backing off as that gate is coming down. And then it's the opposite whenever you're getting done, is that there's somebody standing there ready to put the gate up. The guy driving the mower isn't going to put the gate up. They're going to put it up, put the pins on, and we're all getting in and going.
And so, if you guys follow me, you know that I don't operate that efficiently. And it's one reason I'm drawn to the bigger jobs that rely less on that. The bigger the price of the job, man, you've really got to be efficient with the lawn care. You have to be efficient with anything.
Yeah.
But I show a lot of the setup time and working on ways to boil that down is how you become profitable. I think we're going to do a full episode just on that. And one of the reasons I like having Billy on is that hopefully, my goal is that the two of us are doing this together if we can make that work at some point.
Yeah.
And he's more detail oriented and looks at those things that sometimes I overlook.
Well, I'm obsessed with efficiency. I hate wasting my time. And like I said, I want to be home. Like we're talking about the baseball. So in lawn care, you are going to mow if you have 5 days worth of work. And I mean, I'm talking 12, 14-hour days. 5, 12, 14-hour days worth of work. We have to get all that done. And we're going to be out here today if we can get it done in 9, or it's going to take us 14. We're going to be out here. And the way I paid people based on piecework. So they got a piece of every yard. So they had just as much incentive to figure out how to do our job faster or more efficiently, because they effectively got paid more an hour. So they get, this is how much they're getting paid for these yards today. And like I said, if it takes us 12 hours or 14 hours, this is what we're getting done.
I like that. When I worked piece rate, it was like if you worked faster, you got paid more. And I remember saying quite a few times there, I wish that I could do 8 hours of work today and go home.
Yeah.
In 3 hours and 17 minutes because
Yeah.
I was working fast. But that was, of course, not an option. You just got paid more, which was probably better. But
Yeah.
I definitely see it from that perspective. And so I think we're going to do a full episode on this later. But for now, so you came home and you were kind of struggling to find what you really wanted to do in life. You started lawn care. And then where'd you go from there?
Well, like I said, in 2008, everything kind of blew up on me, and I went to work at a casino. I got back in the casino business. I had been in the casino business before and dealt blackjack and been a shift manager and all this stuff. And I'm diabetic. I have a little sensor here that tells me my glucose. You can see that. That was the hardest part of. I have access to the Indian clinic, but that was the hardest part of being self-employed, was the not having insurance. But went to work at a casino. They have great insurance. It's actually a tribe that I'm a member of, and worked there for 12 years. Started off in maintenance and ended in maintenance, oddly enough. Was a casino host. This kind of dovetails into my personality, where I started learning about personality types and then predicting what people did. I was a casino host. One of the jobs that I had was a casino host, and
a casino host means you're hosting people who come in.
Yeah, you're the person that they call when they need something, and it doesn't matter what it is. You're the person that they call, and you have about 150 or 200 people that you're their person. And the reality is, about 50 of those are high maintenance. 50 of them you never will talk to, you never hear from, and then the rest just kind of come and go.
So I think maybe back up for a second, because around here, and I don't think it's this way everywhere, around here there are a lot of Indian tribes and a lot of casinos run by the Indian tribes. And I think that's probably something that a lot of people, I've lived here my whole life, and I didn't even realize that the Indian tribes were still active. I didn't realize that there's an Indian court,
Yeah.
and Indian police and the whole thing. That was like a culture shock to me. I grew up an hour from here.
Yeah.
But you're an active member of an Indian tribe.
Yes, of two actually, but yeah, the Quapaw tribe, Quapaw Nation, is one of, I guess, 5 tribes in Oklahoma that got reservation status back, and that's a complicated issue. But and the Supreme Court recently pulled some of that back. But the Quapaw Nation has its own police department, its own court system, own child welfare. I mean, lots of things that normally a county or state government would do. We are equal with the state. The state is not our superior. We don't answer to the state. Now, there's like alcohol and tobacco things that we still use the state. We have to get state licenses for, but it's a, like I said, it's a equal relationship. It is not. Best way I can describe it: whenever we fly, when you fly the flag, the American flag is higher. The Oklahoma and the tribe flag are at equal height.
And so, you know, I feel weird because I just asked you that out of the blue. I've never asked you really anything about it because I don't care and it's none of my business. But since we have a big audience today, would you? I guess it's okay to ask you, but do you? I mean, I feel like from the outside, like the Indian tribe is providing a valuable service to the people around here that are part of it. Mm-hmm. You guys get a lot from it. Some people don't seem to be fond of the fact that that there's kind of like 2 legal authorities in the area.
Well, the problem is people don't know history. The Quapaw tribe was originally in Arkansas. Arkansas is what they called the Quapaw. The word they call this it's not exact translation, but the Arkansas, the state name, is named after the Quapaw. Look it up. It's a Kanza was what, but then it gets, mispronounced, and then it's Arkansas. So anyway, so Arkansas, we was in Arkansas. We signed a treaty. They wanted our land. We signed a treaty. They said that, okay, well, if you sign this treaty, we'll do X, Y, and Z. Okay, we'll do that. And we moved. And they moved as close to where Pine Bluff, Arkansas is. And then 10 years later, they decided that they wanted that and said, okay, well, we'll sign another treaty with you and you're going to move here. And we did that. And that ended up moving us down into northern Louisiana, East Texas, down around Texarkana area. Well, what they didn't tell us was that there was other tribes that were there. So they kind of threw us in the same area as some other tribes, the people we didn't get along with. That's another misconception. The Indian tribes didn't live here in peace and harmony before European settlement. We fought just like any other group of people. So then in 1834, I believe, it may have been after that, actually. I believe it was after that. They moved us to northeast Oklahoma, which it wasn't Oklahoma at the time. It was just Indian Territory was what they called it. In like 14,000 acres, something like that, in the very northeast corner of the state. Actually, we are just north of where the original boundary was because Kansas wasn't a state at the time. So there's a strip that's 5 miles wide and 15 miles long in Kansas that was originally part of our reservation, but whenever the state of Kansas became a state, they just come in and said, nope, that's not yours anymore, and blocked it off. So then that's where the Quapaw have been ever since. I don't know where to go from there. There's lots of places we could go off of that.
So I'll just ask you as an individual, like a personal question, like, do you take a lot of pride in the Indian history?
I do, but I wish that it was told the way that it actually happened. And
probably not going to happen, though, is it?
No. For whatever reason, people think that there's some benefit by claiming that we were something we weren't. I mean, the difference between the Quapaws and most is that we lived in settlements. We didn't chase buffalo. We didn't live in teepees. We lived in what they called a wickiup or a bark house. They would take the bark off of cypress trees and use that as siding on their houses. And the buffalo, there used to be buffalo in Arkansas a long time ago. They're native to Arkansas, and they would follow a migration route, just like lots of other animals do. And we hunted them when they come through, but we primarily ate fish, and we grew our own food, and of course foraged for berries and stuff like that. So, but yeah, we lived in towns.
So in terms of the part of the history that's not told right, I'm going to say that I'm pretty ignorant of it. The generalizations are that most people will acknowledge that what was done to the Indian tribes was brutal and horrific.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of what maybe you're saying was ignored was that a lot of the Indian tribes were pretty brutal and horrific themselves before that. Not that that justifies anything else.
But it's just the reality.
You're part of the Indian tribe. You've worked at the casinos a lot. And you're still at one of the casinos.
Yes, for a different tribe.
And blackjack, huh?
Yeah.
I couldn't handle that. I won't even play because I don't have the mental processing to have a lot of things going on at once and not miss something important.
You don't count. So that's a lot of people have that fear. I'd say after like 3 or 4 weeks of doing it, you don't even count the cards anymore. You just look at them and know what it is. There's no thought process, and it's all you're taking the card out and you're putting them here and you're just talking to everybody. You don't all this stuff going on that the mechanics of doing the job are automatic. For me, they were for me anyway, and I like to talk, so I'm dealing cards and talking, and I'm not really even paying attention to dealing cards. You mess up, or somebody says you mess up, and you're like, I don't even know what I could have possibly done because it's just repetitive motion. You see the card, you know what you got, you're paying, you're taking. So I loved it. It was a lot of fun. It was hard on my back. The worst part of it is you have the same assholes that show up every day that are miserable, and I try to make everyone around them miserable, and that's the hardest part of it. But I mean, it's customer service business, and you just put on a smile and deal with it.
I don't want to judge anybody because everyone can do anything they want, but I feel for a lot of people that I know are struggling financially and spend a lot of time at the casinos, which I don't mind anybody making money, and people want to spend money at a casino, so capitalism, which I'm a huge advocate for, says they should exist, but locally I think so many people would be better off if they didn't go.
Well, they would, and I've seen. So when I quit the casino business the first time, it was over exactly what you're talking about. I saw so many people that when they first come in, they have nice clothes and they have jewelry, and then 4 years later, they're a shell of themselves. And I quit. I didn't want to be a part of it. And then through necessity, I went back. But I had always said I wasn't going to go back into the gaming. I was going to go work in maintenance. Maybe a job would come open on the lawn crew, or I could work my way up in that department. I wasn't going to go back inside. And I don't remember where I was, but I was discussing something about bass fishing with someone, and this guy has a $60,000 truck in front of his $10,000 mobile home with a $80,000 bass boat with $50,000 worth of fishing gear inside of it. He's just as broke. He's this guy they was talking about lost everything. So people are free to do with their money what they want, and it's not just gambling that people spend too much on. I mean, I spent too much I got in too much debt in the lawn care business. If I had stayed debt free like I should have, I would have been able to weather that storm. So I just came to the realization that, you know what, people are going to spend money on things that they shouldn't, and that's none of my business. This is about the point in time where I really started becoming libertarian, and stopped thinking about how do we prevent people from making poor choices. And I started focusing my attention on not worrying about what other people's choices were until their choices affected me. So, and the rationalization I used was that the tribe takes that money and does lots of great things with it that it wouldn't do otherwise, that wouldn't be able to do otherwise, and not just for its members. I'll say the name of it. Downstream Casino employs about 1,000 people, and only 100 of them maybe are Quapaw tribal members. So 1,900 people, or 900 people, depend on that place for a living, and it's hard to get a job around here. Most of the money that place brings to the area is not from here. It is mostly from in Springfield, Missouri area is where that money comes from. So tell me another business that is bringing that much revenue into the local economy, and there isn't one.
So towns are sometimes small towns around here become non-existent towns.
Yeah.
I almost think without the Indian tribes, there might not be much of a Quapaw at some point. Like,
Yeah.
They do a lot in the community.
They own most of the town now. They're the police force for the town. They're the fire. Well, there's still a volunteer fire department, but it is almost everyone that is on the fire department for the tribe.
So you are part of making the casino outside or surrounding the casino a beautiful place to visit.
That was my last job at Downstream. That's what my job was.
And what I see you light up about is two things: baseball and anything that grows, farming, and you love grass.
I do. I love everything. I think we're probably going to talk about my YouTube preferences here. The first obsession I had with one channel was with the Millennial Farmer. In the beginning, he started that channel because of all the misconceptions people had about farmers and what actually happens on a farm. What people think happens on a farm, they see these machines out here spraying chemicals and all this stuff on the farm, and they think they're just, putting it on there at a ridiculous, like they do. Like this is the reality. These people buy Roundup or whatever it is, or bug spray, and they just hose. They don't even bother to read the directions. They'll just go, and if there's a bug, they'll spray until the bug stops moving. Well, farmers don't do that. They're putting ounces of chemical on per acre for 43,000 square feet. They're only putting on ounces of actual chemical. It's 99% water. It needs the water to coat whatever they're trying to kill, whether that be a plant, whether that be a plant they don't want, a bug or a fungus or whatever it is. So that was my first channel. I want to be, if I could wave a magic wand, I would own several thousand acres and row crop. Now, I would not farm the way that those guys farm. I love Larson Farms. Brian's farming videos is probably my new favorite channel. But watch Cole the Corn Star. But there's a guy in Tennessee that has a channel. His name it's Griggs Farms, and he uses cover crops. And he doesn't ever say this, but he has a regenerative agriculture. What he's trying to do, he's trying to build soil health. He's trying to make the soil healthy. Now, to tie this back into Native American, that's what they really did. The one thing they don't romanticize, they tried to stay in balance with the land, that they weren't taking more than what the land could provide. And now we do. We force the land to produce more than it can by adding fertilizer, and we just keep adding more and more fertilizer. And as to some degree we have to. I don't remember if we talked about this. Me and you have talked about this off camera, but there's a push for organic. Organic isn't going to feed the world. It can't. The yields will not be there. If we're going to provide the corn and wheat and the soybeans, all the other crops that we have to feed the world, then we're going to have to use fertilizer. Or we can grow crops in between that build soil health, that build organic matter in the soil, so that we don't have to use as much. And I'm obsessive. I want to do that. I hope that if things work out here, we try to do some really small scale stuff like that and show that maybe we just do a garden with, I don't know. Anyway.
So the idea is if Rockhill Farm as an entity and a business can get to that point where we can have a full-time employee, that there's a lot of other things that Billy has an expertise in that I'd like to do, but that I'm not quite ready for. One of the questions that we're supposed to answer is, do I plan to do any traditional farming? Because I have the word farm in the name. And as far as that part, I called this Rockhill Farm because I wanted to start a Christmas tree farm. And I've got a bunch of Christmas trees planted. I've only shown that a couple times because it wasn't that interesting. I just put them in the ground and wait 7 years. I mean, you do need to at some point get some water to them, but I've got a little bit of ground that we can play around on. And we're talking about, can we grow any row crops on that, or maybe try baling hay with a really small tractor like I have, because I haven't seen a lot of that. But I'd like to hear more in detail kind of what you're talking about, the difference between the way they farm and what you think an ideal farming is. Had you kind of finished that thought? Or
No, and none of these ideas are my own. It's all things that I've stolen from somebody else. And the one that I stole this from is a guy named Rick Clark. He's in Indiana. As far as I know, he's the largest organic grower in the country. And his story is proof that organic isn't going to work on a wide scale, because most people have a corn soybeans rotation. They grow corn this year, they grow soybeans next year, or they go continuous corn. They grow corn every single year. Well, they have to. The price stays high. They have to do that. The money that they can make on corn is way more than they can make on soybeans. So there's an incentive there for them to do that. Rick Clark's rotation is 7 years. And so if we're going to take 1/7 of the corn acres away, then we're growing 1/7 of the corn that the world needs. We need all the corn that we grow for whatever we're going to use it for. Now you can have all kinds of discussions on whether or not we should use it for ethanol and all that stuff too, but we need corn. And so farmers produce what's needed.
yeah, I've got opinions that come into my head about the ethanol and about using corn for everything, but the truth is I'm not educated enough to even say them on here.
Yeah.
So maybe at some point keep learning about it, but it seems to me like they subsidize certain crops for no reason, but someone who's really in that might have a different opinion.
Yeah. Well, so organic works for you at your house. That's where organic works, for your garden for your family. And the part of that regenerative agriculture that I find the most interesting is that you end up, there's something called nutrient density. So if the soil is having all of its minerals taken out of it and they're not coming back, then naturally the food that you eat is not going to have the same amount of nutrients in it. And Rick Clark talks about this in one of the videos about in a tomato how much less nutrients there is in it now than there was 35 years ago. And so you're eating a whole tomato, but you're only getting half the nutrition that you got out of it, so you have to eat twice as much to get the same amount of nutrients. And like I said, I think some form of, you don't have to do it the way the government says organic is, because it doesn't make any sense to me that the same government that says that all these chemicals are okay to use is the same government that tells you whether or not you're growing organic or not. I think you use whatever you're comfortable with, but people should grow their own food. And you don't have, if you live in an apartment somewhere, you can still put a couple plants on your patio. There's ways for you to grow inside. and grow some of your own food. That's the way to get out of this mess. And if grocery prices would go down if all of us were producing some of our own food.
So your dream life would be to farm large.
Yes, big. I John Deere X9 1100s, the biggest. I would use all John Deere equipment. Primarily, I wouldn't have Fent now since Luke Bryan is their spokesman, so they're off my list of potential vendors or dealers for my farming business. That'll probably never happen. But
So do you have an intermediate goal that has you doing a little bit of farming? Because what I see is that starting into large-scale farming as a first generation seems impossible.
It is impossible
because the equipment is so high.
Yes.
That
And the inputs are so high. That's the inputs are. You can't. This regenerative thing isn't going to work year one. It's going to be year 5, 6, or 7 that it's going to start to work. And how do you weather that storm? So yes, I have a goal to do that. Those boxes I showed you, that maybe we'll show them one of these days. If I can make some money off of that, we do well on this, then I would like to start renting a little bit of ground, buy me a tractor, and start small and get as big as I can get before I get too old to do it.
Now I've already said it, I think, but I'm really pretty ignorant on this stuff. And if I've got this property right here, it's 20 acres.
Mm-hmm.
There's a hill that's covered in rocks. It cannot be farmed.
Mm-hmm.
There's a house and there's buildings, and there might be 7 acres that is good, high-quality farm ground. They used to have cattle on it, and now it is baled as hay.
Mm-hmm.
What can you really do on a piece of ground like this if you said, I want to be a farmer and I have 7 acres that can be farmed?
There's probably some high ROI crops that you can grow, like strawberries, something like that. There's things like that you could get into on 7 acres that would make it worth your time. If we grew corn out here, maybe sweet corn, that we would, try to get a deal with a local grocery store or something like that to sell some sweet corn.
Because it almost seems to me like all you can do is a really massive garden. Like if you just tried to say, I'm going to be a corn farmer, you can't buy competitive equipment to plant in an efficient manner that the little bit of crop I produce isn't going to be able to be sold for anything unless I'm growing stuff to take to farmers markets or something like you said. When I bought this property, I was actually still trying to close on it, and we hadn't moved here or anything. I told everyone I was going to plant the entire front half from the driveway over, which is like 3 or 4 acres, in strawberries, because my grandparents did acres of strawberries, and I had another relative that had a pick-your-own strawberry farm.
Yep.
That people came from long distances, and it was, to me as a child, it was 1,000 acres, and it might have only been 5 or 10, I don't know, but I wanted to do that, and I still have it on my mind.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of work too.
That's something that's a road that I've thought about going down too. But you got to have the market for it, and you got to have enough to weather the possibility that you get a hailstorm. Because I don't know if you can get crop insurance on strawberries.
And here's where I try to add value.
Or birds come in and eat them all. I don't know. I've looked at all the equipment you need to be able to do it.
Here's where I try to add value to people, because for me, it's almost like I'm playing a game with it, because I don't care what happens to that 5 acres. I don't need to live on it. But if someone's homesteading their hobby farm, can I do cattle? Does it make sense to do hay? What can I do on this piece of acreage to help be a self-sustaining thing? And I'm not a homestead channel, but that's really popular.
Yeah.
And even the idea of saying I'm going to start a strawberry farm or a Christmas tree farm or something like that, that's a niche crop, is pretty risky. It takes a long time to get any crop, and it's a challenging way to say I'm going to depend on this for an income.
Yeah. Well, that being said, my realistic goal is exactly what you said, is to have a homestead where I grow as much of my own food as possible. And I don't depend on going to the grocery store for anything, and hopefully I have enough left over and have a market to sell it so that I can generate the income that I need to buy the other things that I have to have.
And people who are doing that are not putting all their eggs into the chicken basket with eggs, or the strawberry basket, or they're doing a lot of things, and they're selling some firewood. And you have to, if you have a small property, you probably have to diversify unless every inch of it is perfectly farmable.
Yeah.
Which most people can't afford to buy this perfect piece of ground like that.
See, that's how I kind of fell into this, found the regenerative stuff was, I believe it's Dakota Cohen. He's up in Canada. And he has a rotation for where he puts his pigs. You know, they rotational graze. Joel Salatin, I think, is another guy that has ideas on this, on how to make money with a hobby farm. And a homestead, more or less. So, and he's on huge scale. But then I found the farming, because farming is ultimately what I wish that I could do. But then, then you think about Living Traditions over in south of Branson. They milk their own cow. I don't think I want to go that far. I don't think I want to get up every morning and go out and milk a cow. I don't.
But as a child, your family did that, right?
No.
No.
Well, we did, not for milk, though. Sometimes you would have a cow lose a calf. You would save some of the milk because you were going to buy a replacement calf, especially the cows produce colostrum, which has antibodies, the mother's antibodies in it, so it helps jumpstart the calf's immune system. And you would milk that out of them, but not. I know how to milk a cow, but we didn't milk it for milk.
So today we call it homesteading.
Yeah.
And it's like this exciting adventure, right?
Yeah.
That city folks
But it's
try
how my
out.
grandparents lived.
And it's how my grandparents lived. My memories are that they had, and it changed all the time. They had a couple of cows, and they had some chickens, and we would drink goat milk sometimes with breakfast.
Yeah.
Because my parents worked nights, and I would sometimes spend a lot of time with my grandparents, and they went out and cut firewood. They grew a garden. They're like the largest garden I've ever seen, but it would still be small compared to this acreage up here.
Yeah.
But they would do potatoes, rows and rows of potatoes, and they would take them to farmers markets. And neither one of them ever had a job.
Yeah.
They never had any debt. And they lived this simple life where every day they just got up and worked on something.
Yeah.
And so that's where, I'm drawn to recreating that. But the piece of it that nobody wants is that they didn't spend any money, and that's why it worked.
Yes. They didn't have an $83,000 pickup or a skid steer.
Or a tractor of any kind.
Yeah. Well, if they did, they had an old Ford 8N or a Farm All or something like that, you know.
And so, like, if you grow something like acreage of strawberries, you have 5 acres of strawberries, then there's a lot of work to be done to keep the weeds from taking over that. And my grandmother, at 60-some years old, was still hand weeding with just a hand hoe all of those strawberries because they weren't like trying to dream out so there's a place for all of it. To me, I'm looking at how do I avoid having to manually weed all that. But at the time, that's how they stayed in shape.
Yeah.
And they were at peace, kind of with working out in nature. And
yeah, it was a much simpler way to live. I had a large garden, really large garden. Grandma canned. We had probably 14 fruit trees, and I would help Grandma can applesauce and apple butter, jelly, jams. We had a root cellar that we put everything down in. We go get fresh onions in the wintertime out of the cellar. But yeah, and Grandma was out there. That's what she did all summer.
I kind of wonder, a lot of us grew up around that, and like my grandma still sends us our homemade, jelly that they make from, and so we're kind of drawn back to it.
Yeah.
And I wonder, hopefully that always sticks around.
Yeah, my grandmother, it was my mom's mom. She's on the non-Indian side, but which just that doesn't matter, I guess. But anyway, she was born in 1910. So they had a horse and wagon, you know, none of the luxuries that we're accustomed to. And in her lifetime, she went from, like I said, you know, going down to the creek to get water. Didn't have a well, went down to the creek to get water. Washed her clothes at the creek. I would guess she probably had one nice outfit and then the other one that she wore all the time. It was a luxury to have shoes. So in her lifetime, then she got to the point to where she had a computer and knew how to, I don't even remember what the program was called. It was one of the first instant messaging things you had on a computer, and she knew how to use that. So it wasn't lack of intelligence. It was actually far more useful intelligence than what most people have today. So if I was her, if I knew everything that she knew about canning and growing things, then I would, and be honest, if I had her work ethic, just get up every day and work until she was too old to, in her mid 70s. But yeah.
So it's technology is great. I love technology. I love the fact that we can learn old school ways of doing things through modern technology.
Yeah.
And I think the best is if you can use that technology to still do some of that stuff that's more grounded in work, like still splitting firewood when I don't have to, because I think there's a value in getting out and doing the work.
Yeah, there definitely is. And to bring it back to tractors, those old farmers, they knew how to fix everything. They didn't take things back to the dealership. They just cracked it open and fixed it. The sad thing is, and my dad was one of these guys, and I learned everything that I could possibly learn from him, but my brain can only hold so much information. Those guys we're losing them every day. The guys that know how to work on your tractor out here. 20 years ago, you could find 40 guys around here that knew how to, if you could take that tractor to them and say, oh, well, it's this. You just got to do this, this, and this, and you'll fix it. And those guys, there's not very many of them around anymore. And that's sad. There's one on the Alice Chalmers tractors. There's an old mechanic whose son has a YouTube channel, and I can't remember the name of it right now. But he takes videos of it's either his dad or his grandpa working on those old tractors. I think it's his dad, but the dad learned from the grandpa, and that's what they do is work on old tractors. So.
And of course, if you're not following along or didn't know, I've got a 1941 Model A that he's talking about people not knowing how to do anymore, but a lot of people have commented it, and I agree that tractor is now 81 years old, and it's probably doing better than my new tractor will be doing in 81 years.
I would say so.
I think there's any chance that tractor is in operation in 81 years?
No, zero chance.
Yeah, but the Model A might be.
Yeah.
Especially, we're looking at if we can get time. You know, everyone's busy. The idea is right now it doesn't have a working PTO. Tractor runs, starts up easy. You can drive it around, but the lift arms don't go up and down and the PTO doesn't spin. So we'd like to learn how to fix that, and it might not be that complicated.
I say we just bring it in here and crack it open and see what's wrong.
Need to do it on a Saturday, because we have to roll it out so they can get it back in here. Because John Deere might have the parts for it, actually.
Here's another one of my philosophies. Maybe this is something you put on a shirt. You can't break it if it's already broke.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. What if we break it?
It doesn't work right now. What can we possibly screw up by cracking it open and looking to see what's in there?
So we've been going for quite a while now. We're going to be wrapping it up soon, but I wanted to see what else that you haven't already mentioned is on your regular YouTube playlist.
Things my wife hates.
Wait. Because she hates them, or they just happen to be...
She thinks it's dumb that I watch these things. So the Hoof GP, He's in Scotland and trims cow's feet primarily for dairies. And he basically films whenever they have an abscess in their foot or something wrong with their foot. He films it. He shows him cutting and helping this cow to heal and be able to walk right again. But it's just one of those. I find it calming, because the guy's got a good voice. He's entertaining and funny on top of that. But he's got music plays in the background, and I just think it's satisfying. Which was the word I was looking for. Satisfying to watch. On other guys in the same vein are Midwest Hoof Trimmer, and then there's the horseshoeing schools. I watch them too. But
so when you told me about
Nate
that,
Nate the Hoof Guy is another one I watch.
You told me about that Hoof GP. So that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard.
Yeah.
There's no way I could watch that. So I clicked it and turned it on, and he's a master storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing about these channels is someone needs to be a good storyteller to make them worth watching.
Yeah.
That guy's a storyteller, and I would have bet you any amount of money, but I found myself, I watched like 4 or 5 of these long episodes, and I'm like, I'm out because I don't want to be...
Yeah,
it's
the rabbit hole. Avoiding the rabbit hole.
I could see how it was interesting.
Yeah.
So is there anything besides the hoof guy and these bigger farmers?
Then it's primarily for work. I work at a casino. I'm in maintenance. If you don't, I know enough about like residential air conditioning, heating and air to fix most things. I didn't realize what a difference there was between commercial HVAC systems and a home, and the controls that we have, the computer system that runs it all the sensors and everything that it has to maintain the air quality in the space. And I probably spent, last Saturday, before we did the previous episode, I probably watched 8 or 9 hours of commercial HVAC videos. So just my part of my obsessive personality coming through. But yeah, for entertainment, I love watching these Chinese guys trim donkeys' feet, because they have this. It's a blade on a bar that's sharp on the end, and they take these donkeys' feet that are all overgrown and everything, and they got their hand here, and this blade coming down that they're shoving down to cut the foot off with. And I watch it because I know that I'm going to watch a video one of these days, and one of these guys is going to be missing a finger. And and it's funny because there's no translation, and you can tell whenever the donkey does something and that is pissing them off, and they start cussing at him in Chinese or whatever language, with Chinese, Korean, whatever it is. I assume it's China. But anyway, it's hilarious to me to watch those videos, and some of them are like 45 minutes long, and I'll sit there and watch the whole stupid thing from beginning to end.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, for no reason. It's just, you watch things to escape reality sometimes. Sometimes you don't want to think, and you can just watch that and not think one bit. Turn the brain off and be entertained.
So I forgot what we just said. The other thing we were going to talk about was
personality types.
You want to do that one?
Yeah, let's do personality types.
Now, Billy's going to give us a little education, and I've ruined it. He came here prepared to talk about personality types and this test you use to determine your personality type. I took college psychology, and we had to do a very long paper on this exact same test. And I remembered mine was INFP. There's 4 categories, and those determine your personality in 4 different kind of categories, basically. And that tells you like who you interact well with and stuff like that. It's been a long time for me, so maybe you have a better way to explain that.
It's not. So they take everyone in the world and put them into 16 buckets, more or less, that you're fit into these buckets. So mine, I'd say it's 90% correct. I don't know how much yours is, but when I was at the casino, I became really interested in this because as a casino host, you have to be whatever the person you're dealing with wants you to be. Some people want you to be chatty. Some people want you to be quiet. Some people want you to be a listener. Some people want you to entertain them. So, and in blackjack too, but I wasn't on this journey at that point. But I was also a manager, so I had people working for me and trying to learn how to be a good boss and be the boss that person needed, rather than just be the boss that I thought I was supposed to be. So I learned enough about the personality test so that whenever I was interacting with people, I could get a pretty good idea of what their personality type would be, and then I would go back and read what conflicts we might have, but where I can find common ground with them and be what they need me to be. So, and that sounds like you're manipulating, but it's not. I think that it's learning how to be a complete person. So, a casino host, you try to match people up with people that they will click with. So I may go to one guy who's a farmer. I have to be able to talk to him about things that he's interested in and have an intelligent conversation with him. The next guy may be a brain surgeon, which this is actual people that I'm referring to. He's a brain surgeon, and you got to go sit down and have dinner with this guy. And you have to be able to know what his personality type is so you can listen when it's time to listen or talk when it's time to talk. And then also have enough life experience to be able to carry on a conversation through dinner, because there's times that you don't. Sometimes you sit there, imagine sitting with somebody for an hour and a half and not having anything to talk about. So, but anyway, so they put everybody in these buckets. I'm an ENTP, which is kind of a compliment to yours, which I already knew. So when I got here, I brought that up on my phone, and my intention was that he was going to take this personality test while we were filming. He'd fast forward through it, and then I would hold up on my phone what he was. But Brock is the Mediator, is what his personality type is called. So he's INFP, right? So he's an introvert. He's intuitive thinker, feeling, and perceiving. I am an extrovert, intuitive, thinking, perceiving. So why ours complement is that I'm looking for logic and reason in everything, and you have more feeling. How you feel about it comes more into play, and I don't totally, but that's secondary. Does this make logical sense? And that's where I come in conflict with people. People think that I'm arguing because I require you, for I'm willing to go along with your idea, to explain it to me in a logical manner. And sometimes you may, I don't know, we've never had this conflict before, but maybe you're talking about feelings, and I'm like, I don't give a shit about your feelings. Tell me why this is going to work. So, but anyway, it's fun to do. I've done it with our baseball team. Had the kids do it, and especially with so the kids can read about me and the head coach to understand that there's a reason that he reacts the way that he does, and it's important for you to know why he reacts the way he does whenever you do certain things, and it's important for the coach to know why the kid reacts the way he does whenever you say certain things. So all about trying to achieve maximum performance out of everybody.
And when I found that test to be very interesting, because it's been 16 years since I took it, and when you told me, you didn't tell me which test it is, because there's other variations of this, and I knew the 4 letters.
Yeah.
That's been a long time ago, and I don't know what I had for breakfast.
Yeah.
And the way I know that it plays out is I'm constantly empathizing almost to my detriment that, like, whenever I know what I should charge someone, I'm like, but can they pay that?
Yeah.
And it's not my business if they can pay it or not, because I have to be profitable as a business.
Yeah.
And as an employer, the way it comes out is, if I want to tell these people what to do, I need to invest emotional energy into them and come in every morning and be like, how are you?
Yes.
And not just ask,
Yes.
but wait on the answer and then see if I can help that. And if I'm not doing that, how can I demand anything from them if I don't? Because people, and so, like, what I'm saying is mostly good things, but you can take anything too far.
Yeah.
And so it's good to have a balance.
Yeah, I sent you posted a video a few weeks on Facebook, and you said that was your guy. Simon Sinek is another guy that I really like, and his basic premise on business is, why does your business exist? What is its cause? What is its purpose? And it's not to make money. It has to have a purpose, so people are interested in being a part of it, and that's what this is all about. Is providing content to people that they find interesting that makes their lives better. And in return for that, you hope that you can make some money at it. So that you didn't set out doing this because you wanted to make a lot of money. You set out with a purpose and a cause. And as long as we stay true to that purpose and the cause, then I feel like this is eventually going to be successful. And if all things are right in the world, it should. And
yeah, and that's where I try to be empathetic towards the people who leave negative comments, because they've only invested a minute into what's happening, and so it's an immediate reaction. Whereas you can't expect that everyone who leaves a comment will have been on a journey with you to get to where you're at over a long period of time. And when you brought up Simon Sinek, so last time we talked about what I like to watch on YouTube, and I brought up things that would relate to my niche on YouTube, but in reality, I don't watch anybody very much running tractors. I did before I bought a tractor. And before I bought the skid steer, I watched 1,000 hours of people talking about skid steers. But what I watch every day is Simon Sinek and Gary Vaynerchuk and Steve Harvey and Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins.
yeah.
And about manifesting your destiny, and about, how to get where I want to go on an emotional and intellectual level. And generally, when someone starts talking to me about the details of something, I kind of glaze over that. I need the vision and the idea, and then you get into the minutia, and I'm just like, I can't even think about that. Like, the next step is where I need to figure out.
Yeah, that's the one thing that our personality types have in common, is that we're big picture thinkers. We're not concerned with the details. Once we've figured out the process, then we've moved on. If somebody else needs to take care of the process, we're gonna fix the next big problem.
You can tell that because this is our second podcast, and we have had absolutely no notes, or we just did it.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people who will outline for every single video exactly what the video is going to be. I walk out with a camera, and I'm like, I have kind of an idea. I'm going to be working over there.
Yeah.
And then what I feel as I'm recording it is like, oh, that's the video. I was nervous working on the edge of that, so that's what the video is about.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
so what have we not said that tells the viewer who Billy is?
I love superhero movies. All superhero movies, pretty much, but specifically the Marvel movies. And I'll tell you why. Tony Stark and I, and Robert Downey Jr., oddly enough, the actor who plays Tony Stark, is an ENTP. And I love those movies because, though they're fantastically written, and the more I watch them, the more times you watch them, the more details and little nuances you pick up. But there's so many things in Tony Stark's life that I can relate to. And he's the mechanic. He fixes things. the evolution of the suits were all based on something that failed. The first suit froze up at 80,000 feet, so he fixed that. But it was all to protect the thing that he cared about the most, and that was pepper. And in Iron Man 3, he makes this prehensile suit, and you think it's just cool. You know, he holds out his hand as it comes flying at him. Well, then the Mandalorian blows the house up, and he shoots his hands out like this, and the suit goes and covers Pepper. And, you know, we could go on about all this for days, but there's lots of things in the way he handles them that, and when he handles them wrong, that I can relate to. And then the other thing about my second favorite character is Captain America. This is something you want to do the right thing. You always want to do the right thing, but sometimes it's really hard to do the right thing. And Captain America always does the right thing, except at the very end, which is terrible. He went back and lived his life, but maybe he deserved it. But anyway.
So one of the questions that we were asked, we're getting ready to read the questions from the viewers from the last episode. One was, what's your favorite Marvel movie? Mm-hmm. And so is the answer
my
Iron Man?
My favorite Marvel movie is Endgame, because it gave you everything you wanted. Everything that you wanted to happen happened. And it's my favorite movie. I've watched it 100 times. I say that. Pulp Fiction's probably my favorite movie of all time, but of the Marvel movies, Endgame is amazing. And I'm not wild about any of the new shows that are coming out now, because my favorite character is Tony Stark. He's a smartass. One of the things that me and him have in common is we have nicknames. It's funny that you give me a nickname, because I'm not usually the one getting nicknames. I'm the one giving nicknames. So, but he's always got a quippy line. He's always got some smart, sarcastic comment to give, and that's.
So I answered that question by saying the cliche answer is probably Infinity War. Yeah. Because for me, Infinity War and Endgame were just phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Then the runner-up to the epic blowouts that they did like that was the first Iron Man and the first Captain America. Mm-hmm. Because they had a simplicity in, like, I always thought the Rambo series was fairly ridiculous, but First Blood, the original movie, was really grounded. I mean, he's just walking as a Vietnam veteran. Yeah. And, like, just being harassed, and he just unleashed on him what he knew. That, to me, was an epic movie, and I thought out of everything, when you look at where the series is now, and it's like if you get 3 new wizards in a movie, it's okay. Yeah. Back to the first Iron Man, it felt like there's a stretch of reality where that could happen. Yeah. And so I like it for that. But then anything with the Guardians of the Galaxy in them, their humor is so incredible. Or nothing would go over Drax's head and all of that. Yeah. It's unbelievable humor from those guys.
And I can't believe that's Bradley Cooper talking as Rocket. But
Vin Diesel is voicing Groot. Yeah. That's a great job there.
The line in Iron Man, whenever Obadiah Stane is talking to the engineers back at Stark Industries with the small arc reactor, and he said, Tony Stark built this in a cave with scraps. And the guy says, I'm not Tony Stark. Mm-hmm. It's
a great writing.
That's great. In the first Avengers movie, whenever Captain America and Tony Stark are talking, and he tells him he's not the one to make the sacrifice play, and then the way it ends. How did they know that? Did they know how it was going to end? Because with a few of the characters, there are some plot holes in there, things that don't make sense. But looking back on it, because I mean, I'm sure you were like everybody else, as you're leading up in that final fight scene, who's going to be the one? Because you know what's going to happen. You know that you know that Thanos isn't going to snap his fingers again. That's not going to happen. But who's going to be the one to get it? And I'll just tell you that whenever Captain Marvel and all of them went after him, and I thought she was going to be the one to do it, I was pissed. But in reality, there was only one guy that should have been. And I watched those videos about what's going to happen in the movie, and there wasn't it should have been obvious to all of us that were watching that of who it was going to be. He was the only one it could have been. It was the only one that made sense for it to be him. And did they know that? Did they know that whenever they did Iron Man 1 that's what was going to happen? And did they think that far ahead? But yeah, it's great. Deadpool's is my new favorite. So they're going to have to put him in there and in order to keep me as a fan, because Shang-Chi was all right. Doctor Strange was all right. The Black Widow movie was okay. I haven't seen the new Thor. Me and my daughter used to go to every premiere the night that they come on, but she's gotten older and has a boyfriend, and it's not as cool to go with me anymore. So, but anyway, but yeah, I love those movies. They, I see. It's the same reason that we watch Simon Sinek and all these other guys. I do anyway, to find inspiration. The heroes do what heroes have to do, and I never didn't say this. I wanted to be a Navy SEAL, but I went to go play college baseball because I wanted to do that more. But I wanted to be a SEAL, and I almost wish that I would have. Mm-hmm. I'd have got thrown out when I was 28 because of diabetes. But anyway, yeah, I love those movies.
And so I go really hard because this is going on my YouTube channel to not talk about politics. But I will say that through most of all those Marvel movies, the heroes were heroic. And they were diverse in their backgrounds all the way through. And then after Endgame, it seems like they're just trying to they're trying to make diversity the topic when it was so well when it just happened.
Yeah.
And so I'm not a fan of some of how hard they're pushing some of those messages in these new shows.
Well, and it's funny that Deadpool alludes to that, being that X-Men was a veiled term for racism in the 80s or whatever. What it was, it's X-Men, not X-people. So, but yeah.
So before we go down that rabbit hole, let's read these questions from the viewers. Most valuable tractor lesson you have learned since starting your channel? That don't be afraid of it. Just get out there and do it. Every manufacturer makes a great machine, and if you're going to buy a machine, focus on what it can lift and pull instead of maybe some of the more gimmicky features. Have any tractor lessons?
Keep your bucket low.
Keep your bucket low.
Keep your bucket low. Oh yeah. If you're a new guy, I see farmers around here doing it all the time, and whenever they don't even have anything on the front, they'll raise the front end loader all the way up in the air to make it easier to see, and all you're doing is changing the center of gravity of that tractor, and if you drop off in a hole, it's going to fall over, or it could fall over.
I made 2 videos about how to avoid flipping your tractor over. Nobody watches those.
Yeah.
I thought I covered it really well and that it was an important topic, but for whatever reason, it doesn't get pushed out by the algorithm on YouTube.
If you're a new guy thinking about getting a tractor, make sure that's my number one advice. Keep your bucket low.
Okay, Todd Caskey is a regular long-time viewer. Really appreciate you, Todd. Ask a bunch of questions about my pitching mound business. How do you get sales of your mounds? I make YouTube videos. I have a Facebook page. I run Google ads. I run Facebook ads. I'm on Etsy, eBay, Amazon. It was like I would have said my full-time job for a year was finding ways to sell them by putting it out there in as many places as possible. So that was something I had to learn, SEO, how to get the website to show up. Do you have a salesperson? No. am not a big enough business to have a customer service person or a salesperson or all these different things that you should have, but I'm also not small enough for me to do it as a hobby. So it becomes almost detrimental that I'm sometimes need to be working on that, and instead I'm running the tractor. But that's a choice, and we'll see how it goes. How much time a day do you spend on your mounds business? That can be between 2 hours and 12 hours. What I start off every day is I get up and I'm excited about making a YouTube video. I come out to the shop to see what kind of problems there are. Being a business owner means you're a firefighter. Every day there's a problem. I think I've stocked everything. We don't have something. The only way to get it before it's actually going to get shipped here is to spend half my day going around and scouring up supplies. Look for problems. If there are no problems, then I start making videos, and all through the day I answer YouTube comments, and I get phone calls, text messages, Facebook messages, and emails asking me about the availability of our product, why the product someone has ordered has not been shipped, and what size of our different variations they should go with. So I would say on average I probably spend 4 to 6 hours a day working on pitching mounds. And if I sleep 6, then that's 12 between those two things. I've still got 12 hours to play on the tractor. So, do you ever think about getting a deck over trailer? Every day.
Did somebody suggest that you should get a deck over trailer whenever you bought one originally?
Billy told me to.
Okay, I was just making sure that.
And a lot of people also told me, but Billy told me loudly and specifically in person. And here's the thing. I'm trying to do a million things on a budget for 5 things, and I say everything is budget related. I spent $2,500 less on a cash purchase of a gooseneck trailer that wasn't what I needed. And like something that's free but doesn't work is like, oh wow, but I was trying to afford it. I just bought the truck. I had to put $5,000 down on the truck. I just bought the Quonset hut. I almost called them and told them I couldn't afford the Quonset hut. I'd put money down. I would have had to lose my down payment, and I almost canceled it. And all this stuff happened at once, and I'm trying to grow faster than I can really afford to grow. So you see me making choices that sometimes aren't the best. I need a deck over trailer for a list of reasons, and I don't have one yet, but I'd say within 6 months you'll see it. Does it bug you when I bug you to get chainsaw pants? You ever worn chainsaw pants instead of chainsaw chaps?
No, I had to wear them at the previous job because we had a safety person who was like a YouTube keyboard warrior on safety, so we had to wear the whole schmear. And
I have a very limited knowledge of this. My good friend Todd here, who watches and comments all the time, and I appreciate that, is making an inside joke about me getting chainsaw pants.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it sounds like a heck of a good idea. They're a little bit expensive, and they're in the price range of things. If I want something that costs in a certain price range, and I've decided to buy it, before I buy it, I send out an email asking if anyone wants to sponsor it for the channel. Those are in that price range. I think I should ask and see if someone wants to give me a pair of chainsaw pants.
Have you ever worn them before?
No.
Have you ever worn chaps before? Well, you have chaps.
Yeah, I wear chaps almost every time I cut.
And you know how hot they are.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine how hot those pants would be?
Good for the winter, right?
Yes. That was my deal. Wearing them in the summertime was just brutal.
Just looking at them, I've never even seen them. Yeah. I thought they would be thinner for some reason than the chaps.
I don't know,
but they go all the way around.
Yeah, I've never heard. I just know that the chaps are ridiculously hot in the summertime.
Okay. Do you know what number subscriber I am? Well, you're number 1 in my heart.
Yeah.
Next question, Hardy Brothers Outdoors. And before I read their questions, I want to tell you that I consider the Hardy Brothers to be personal friends. We've been messaging and talking for a long time. They have multiple John Deere tractors. They have what they call the Habitat Oasis Project, which is turning a large amount of acreage back to its original habitat. They've received some government grants to take out invasive species of plants, and it's a really interesting project they do. Interestingly, just the nature of it, if they make a tractor video, it gets watched a lot, and when they make habitat restoration videos, they don't get watched. But it's quality information.
Yeah. So is this, where is this at?
Ohio, I
Ohio?
believe.
Yeah. So just so you know, two trees that you likely have around you that are invasive to the area we're in are cedar trees and Bradford pears. Those are both invasive species trees.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
So go check out Hardy Brothers Outdoors. Have you ever gotten to meet Mike Morgan and share that story? So almost every channel that I watch, I've talked to. I got to know Tractor Time with Tim pretty well. Arms Family Homestead, I just spent the weekend at his conference. That is a fantastic human being. Besides having a great YouTube channel, just a great guy. I've met almost all of these guys. I have never spoken to Mike Morgan. He really never even responds to my comments. I've heard that they take a personal approach to responding to emails or if you send them a letter, but they don't really reply to comments. And for whatever reason, I have never talked to Mike at all. Love the videos, but just don't know him. Your dream sponsorship would be what company? If they offered you any piece of equipment they carried, what would you choose? So, that would be John Deere. But John Deere does, I don't picture the realm of possibility that they will ever care what I do. They're too big.
They do some things for Millennial Farmer, but it is demos. And it is only to show new technology and stuff like that.
And he's got millions of subscribers.
Almost a million. He's got, once he gets to 1 million, the dog gets to ride in the tractor.
I hadn't heard that one. That sounds like a funny little thing they've got going.
Yeah.
Tractor Time with Tim, I think he's close to 200,000 subscribers. And I've talked to him, and Deere does not really seem too interested in the fact that he exists, even though that guy has sold tens of thousands of John Deere tractors. That's why he's a big part of the reason why I have one. And I think it's criminal misconduct on their part that they are not sponsoring him, but that's their company thing. They're just such a big company that they just don't have time for that.
Did he get a demo? Didn't he get a demo on one, like a 40 series or something?
So I don't want to tell Tim's story, but what Tim gets some deals on his tractors from a local dealership, and he's gaining something in that category, but it's not from John Deere.
Yeah.
And my local dealer actually shot an ad with me, and I got a discount on one thing, and a dealership is separate from a company.
Yeah.
At the dream scenario for me, and I kind of don't like to say this sort of thing because it sounds greedy, but I'm doing this channel to earn a living, and I want it to pay for itself, and I'm wanting to get sponsored by one of the tractor companies. I think they almost all make a good tractor, and I would like to get the access to compare different types of tractors, because how can I really do that? So that's an ideal sponsor, but it's really not something I spend much time thinking about. Billy's personality type is
ENTP, and it's 3% of the population.
he's a J-hole. Honey, that's an A. That's a Saturday Night Live thing.
3% of the population. Everybody thinks I'm arguing, and I think we're just talking. I think that's out of the movie too.
I've had a few people tell
Jerry
me
Maguire.
that Billy was hard to get along with. That hasn't really been my experience. I had one more
It's because we're
comment.
compatible
Kevin
personality type.
Kevin Luckel, I never know how to pronounce last names. He is a regular viewer on Facebook. He asked a question that I've kind of already answered. What are you going to do on your land in the future? Any farming? Everybody does animals. There's lots of different kinds of farming that nobody talks about. Could be a tree farm, could be a nursery, or sharecropping. So we kind of already answered that about maybe some of the smaller types of crops, maybe doing an experiment on the regenerative farming. I'd like to do my own hay. They're all just ideas right now. I'm not really sure where I'm going. What I do know for sure is I want to set up a real processing operation where I can have logs brought in here from tree services or off my own property, or get access to one of the many neighbors with large acreage and harvest a lot of trees. And in the winter I want to turn that into firewood and saw logs, and I want to process my own lumber and use that lumber to build things on the property.
It'd be awesome. With the hay and stuff, me and you, or you and I talked about this the other day. I think it'd be really cool to take that old equipment and era or period specific equipment, 2-year 41
You can
tractor
get
out there and get pieces of equipment for it. Now the regenerative we would never till, so having a plow and stuff, I mean, we'd have it, but it'd just be about restoring it rather than actually using it. But I think it would add value to it if you ever did want to sell it. If you have 4 or 5 other pieces of equipment that are period specific, it would make it more valuable to somebody who was a collector or something like that. But yeah, that'd be cool.
So we've been through all the questions. If you guys enjoy this kind of content, you guys know how to support a channel like this. You like the video, share it, subscribe, watch more of it. You can go on the podcast. This show is on YouTube, Facebook, and it is a podcast on wherever you get your podcast. Those are spread by giving a rating. And so if you're watching this part, that probably means you liked it. Go on and give us a rating or leave us a comment or something like that. I had one other thing that I was at this 2-day event with a bunch of big channels, and they talked about how to run this kind of a YouTube channel and all that. And I'm going to a new merchandise provider. We're going to start doing our own t-shirt kind of thing, and I need a catchphrase. And I don't really have one. So if you guys have any suggestions for something I could put on a t-shirt, let me know what that would be.
I have lots of ideas, but they're all beyond your level of comfort. So
yeah, I just want to make a bunch of shirts with terrible nicknames for Billy.
I can't remember. I had one, but it's probably not. If you want to rate this as clean, then I probably should leave that out.
So I'm working on things besides just my logo. Something like the Hardy Brothers have one. Theirs is outdoors is always in season. I think that's fantastic. I wish I would have thought of it. I'd put it on a shirt and sell it. And those little things like that are a good way to build income, but also something that might be useful to you. And I was thinking about doing not just t-shirts, but something like workwear. But anyway, I'm going to give that some more thought. If you guys have any suggestions on it, we're going to try to do that. Otherwise, did you have anything else?
I don't think so. It's been a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing this, and I didn't know if I would. And I was really nervous at the beginning of this one, talking about myself. It's like you had said last week that it was weird, and it was weird talking about myself.
I could tell that you were a little bit more uneasy than you'd been with the other stuff.
Yeah, and part of it too is I lost my dad, and 4 years ago, and thinking about the kind of questions you was going to ask me today, I knew. I knew that was going to bother me. So, this is probably not the right time to tell this story, but I'm going to tell one more story right quick. I had a story to tell about my dad, and he died of something called pulmonary fibrosis. And this was a man who worked outside every day. I mean, he worked. Maybe always didn't accomplish a lot, but he went outside and worked every day, and it was the way he passed and the time it took was similar to cancer. If you've been down that road before, so I don't know how else to say it, and some people may not like it, but you're ready, they're ready, and you're ready, and when it actually happens and you're sitting there and they pass, you're almost relieved that they're not having to deal with that anymore. And, there's lots of people in the room crying, and I'm not crying. I don't even know that mom cried, because we were around him the most. They just lived a couple miles from me, so I was there a lot. But the next morning, we knew people was going to be coming. So Mom said, "Hey, can you fix that there was something in the bathroom that needed fixed. And I walked outside and looked at his tools. And as if you've had a dad that had lots of tools and you were young, and maybe when you weren't young, you probably got a talking to a few times about putting the tools back. And I rarely did. Even in my early 40s, I would not put Dad's tools back where they go. And there isn't anything that I'm more aware of now, because there's not ever going to be any more Dad's tools. That's all that there is. And I'm very protective of those tools. So something that a lot of you out there can probably relate to, because if you're watching this channel and you work on things, then you probably had a dad who worked on things. So I miss him all the time, and wish he was still here, but anyway.
Well, I appreciate you telling the story.
Yeah.
And I bet a lot of people enjoyed that little story.
Yeah.
Because everyone has some memories like that. I actually had someone comment on a video the other day. The video was old, and I have no idea what they're talking about, but they said, like, how dare you call him your old man? Really got offended that I referred to my dad as my old man. My dad's entire way of interacting is to give you a hard time, say something that seems rude in a playful way.
Yeah.
That's the only way he interacts.
Gentle bullying.
Yeah. And there is absolutely zero chance that he was offended by that. But
Yeah.
somebody missed their dad.
Yeah.
And felt like I was being disrespectful. But
Yeah.
everybody has a different relationship.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it was good to hear a little.
My dad was quiet. He wasn't much of a talker, but whenever he talked, usually what he had to say meant something. And I'm lucky to have had him for as long as I did. He was 35 years old when I was born, so and Mom was 30. So most of my friends, their grandparents are closer to the age of my parents. So, and then I talked about my grandma being born in 1910. My mom was the last child of five, and 6 pregnancies, 5 kids. And then my dad was an only child to a 39-year-old man and grandma was 36 when he was born. So, I only had 2 grandparents when I was born. So, and then Grandpa died whenever I was 9. So, most of my life I only had one grandparent, and that's the best memories of my life is being on the farm and riding on tractors with Mom and Dad, and going fishing with Grandma. She made these dough balls out of corn flakes. We'd go catch perch, and I'd sit there and catch perch all day, and she'd take them off the hook for me because I was scared of them. Mm-hmm. But and then we'd go home whenever we ran out of bait, and sometimes we ate more bait than the fish did. But yep, it was a good life. I wish the kids had gotten to grow up that way, and I'm hoping that I can get back to a lifestyle where my grandkids can have that opportunity should they choose to do that.
And wherever you're at the time, a lot of people are shocked that I have grandkids that they say you're not old enough for that. Well, I got a head start because I have stepdaughters that were a little bit older when I met them. But ultimately, I'm really grateful for the fact that, barring something unforeseen with what life expectancies are, and a lot of people having kids younger now, I am going to know my grandkids for a lot longer.
And probably have great grandkids that you're young enough to be able to do things with whenever they arrive.
Yeah, I'm truly able to. So I try to really think about a lot of people who didn't get that time. So I try to enjoy it in a different way with the grandkids.
Yeah, grandkids are. I have one, and he's just 6 months old in 4 days. But I wish you could have grandkids without the kids. But yeah, that grandbaby's something else. So, and you get to spend a lot of time with yours out here on the farm, living the dream, and he appears to be ate up with it. So, yeah, that'll be good for you one of these days.
Yeah, he off camera, he operates the equipment.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get in trouble from anybody for that, but it's what happens.
Well, don't put him on the fender of an open cab tractor while you're bush hogging like my parents did whenever I was a child. So that was just how it was. You know, we didn't have car seats. You know, that I'm old enough that I didn't have a car seat. If we did, it was rarely used, and it was all made out of metal. So I'm not sure. This was the car seat. Whenever we hit the brakes, Mom stuck her arm out because I was standing in the center of the car. Olds 98.
It's a different world.
Yeah, or I think she had a 78 Pontiac Grand Prix.
So I can't remember if we had car seats because I was a child.
Yeah.
But I can remember some of my earliest memories were always demanding that when we got somewhere that they shut the door and let me get out the window.
Yeah.
So hearkening to the name
Yeah.
of this podcast,
Yeah.
I had a thing about I didn't want to go out the car door. Those are supposed to be welded shut.
Well, I rode in the back glass of that Olds 98 to Colorado. Laid in the back glass all the way to Colorado. Went to Kansas City first and saw some family, and then got on I-70 and stuff that they would have got thrown in jail for doing today. But somehow I survived. Then we had a S10 pickup that put a camper shell on. We went to Las Vegas in it. And it had an extended cab, but hell, it was this much space. So me and my brother we put boards in the back and then put a mattress on top of it, and that's pretty much where we rode.
I do remember going to Bible school with my grandmother, and she took all of her grandkids, and I think there were about 11 of us at that time, and she took us all in one car.
Yeah.
And I think it was a pickup truck with a camper shell on it, and there were like 3 in the cab and 8 in the back of that camper shell.
Yeah.
So I guess I do remember not having a car seat.
Yeah. Well, you guys, we love doing this. We hope you guys love it as much as we do, and find it interesting and entertaining, and learn something along the way. If you got any ideas for other topics that we can cover, we're always interested in listening. He pays more attention to the comments than I do, but he gets notifications whenever you guys comment, and I have to go search.
And we already have a couple of YouTube channels about the same size as mine that maybe you guys haven't seen, and some other local friends we're going to have as guests and a few topic ideas. So we really appreciate you joining Just Some Good Old Boys.
Just some good old boys.
And we'll see you next time.
See ya.